Please remain seated. The show will begin in 3, 2...
Like a Hellcat.
Hello, ghoul friends, those who are freaky chic, fans of the supernatural and all things spooky. I'm your host, FandomTraveller87, and welcome back to my channel. Note from me, the author. I've begun writing this story primarily because it spreads awareness of a very serious subject, eating disorders. I've grown up having a lot of self-esteem issues regarding my body weight, and I've always heard horror stories about people, even famous ones, that have struggled with anorexia. I do want you all to know that even though I'm a complete stranger, I deeply care about people, and I want you all to love yourselves no matter what you look like. A lot of us have dealt with our personal demons, and one prime example of this is Mrs. Judy Garland, who passed away at 47 years old in 1969. She is well known for her remarkable singing voice and being a wonderful human being, and of course commonly known as playing the role of Dorothy Gale from the 1938 film The Wizard of Oz. And before I continue on with telling my tale, I want us to all take a moment to show our appreciation and have compassion for what Mrs. Garland had gone through in her life. She had given so much to the world, to those she had worked for, and she had not worked in the most, I would say, best conditions, as starting out as a young actress. And I hope and I pray that she found that rainbow that she was looking for in the end. And I hope that she is resting peacefully, knowing that her kids still love her and that we all love her. She may have died, but her legacy lives on, and so does her spirit in all of us. So, with that being said, I want you all to understand, and to please understand, that this story is not a mockery of the tragedy of us losing a terrific icon. This story is not for just entertainment. It is to inform others who may not be educated enough to understand the gravity, the severity of eating disorders, that the damage that you do to your body is absolutely critical, and it is not something to take lightly. And this is why something like this hits so close to home, because I was almost at the verge of doing significant damage to my body because I was so worried about how I looked. My final message to all of you out there who may know somebody who has an eating disorder, or maybe you are someone who does struggle with this, and just know that you need to take care of yourself and you need to look out for those you care about. It's okay to want to encourage them to improve themselves, but it has to be in a constructive way that won't psychologically damage them, like it did with Mrs. Judy Garland. And I hope that her story will be a testament to all of you to learn just how serious it is. Whoever you are, wherever you are in the world, I hope you are listening. Remember, please, love yourself. Remember that you deserve happiness. Stand up for what is right. Now let's dive right back into the crypt for this next terrifying tale. This story begins with my grandpa, whose side of the family worked for MGM Studios to help with the 1938 production of The Wizard of Oz. When the film was released a year later, strings of bad luck and a array of misfortunes seemed to follow those who directly had any ties to it and the studio itself. I was 14 years old when I learned about how one of my favorite movies growing up had a dark history, for many of these facts he shared with me were indeed true. Back then, the cast members were working in rather poor conditions. The star of the film, Judy Garland, who played the beloved heroine Dorothy Gale, she was emotionally abused and forced into unhealthy diets, and was also a victim of prey by one of the studio's successful and well-known producers, L.B. Mayer, who co-owned MGM. Now, in 1969, the same year that Judy Garland passed away, a theme park known as Land of Oz grew from a mere dream to a big reality, and has been known to, in the past, open up around Halloween time on occasion. It also has some skeletons hidden in its closet. In the earlier years of the park's operation, there was one legend that became popular with the locals in Beach Mountain, North Carolina. In the summer of 1970, a young woman, the daughter of one of the executives of the park by the name of Leigh Ann Porter, was the actress who played Dorothy Gale and was the first one to greet guests when they entered the park. Leigh Ann was the spitting image of Judy Garland, resembled her pretty well, and rumors had it that at just 17 years old, she was given facelifts so she could better inhabit the role. She was just that devoted to her career, and she was obsessed with looking her absolute best. Leigh Ann was reported to have also gone through similar treatment that Judy Garland herself endured. Forced dieting, starvation, suffering from brutally harsh criticism on her body weight, working tirelessly long shifts. Her father claimed he did this all out of love for his child, but was under the pressures of the high expectations his colleagues put on him to make the park successful. To add insult to injury, according to my grandpa, who was close friends with Leigh Ann, said her father would take all her paychecks and greedily use her profits to not only invest them into the park, but use her hard-earned money for personal gain. Leigh Ann could no longer afford to go to university and was not only financially strapped to working at the park, but now a slave to bend and break to her father's every whim. There were numerous eyewitness accounts that Leigh Ann was often harassed by even some of the Munchkin actors for her beauty, and when she was reporting this to her father, she was discredited and dismissed, and her cries just fell on deaf ears. My grandfather was the only one who tried to help protect Leigh Ann, and this led to some of his friends at work to turn on him, because they were all just trying to cover their own asses, because they didn't want to lose their jobs. And sadly, they made 3 times as much as Leigh Ann did, and they had lower rank positions. On August 10th of 1970, tragedy struck, which caused the park to shut down for a thorough investigation, which opened and shut within 6 months. Leigh Ann's body was discovered badly mangled, eyes cut out, gutted severely with intestines still dangling from a fractured rib cage, as well as numerous cuts and bruises on her arms and legs. It was approximately 2 a.m. that morning when security found her hanging from a tree and called the authorities. The culprit was never caught. There was a lack of evidence and not enough witnesses. The only information the police had to go off of was that Leigh Ann was in a loud, brief argument with her father in one section of the park, being the Munchkin Village, and had run off, not being seen for the remainder of the night. It was presumed, however, she had gotten a ride home with a close friend of hers, and that was it. Everyone else made that same claim, and after interviewing them, there were no leads or a prime suspect. Well, my grandpa, who worked for Leigh Ann's father as a janitor, had an entirely different view of the events that happened on the night Leigh Ann was killed. My grandpa Norman was sweeping and picking up garbage when he heard Leanne screaming and Leanne's father yelling and swearing at her to shut up. My grandfather dropped what he was doing and ran over to the Munchkin village to find that Leanne was slapped hard across the face and had fallen to the ground. My grandpa intervened and offered to take Leanne home. The argument went on for a good 20 minutes, and her father was terribly drunk, said my grandpa to the police. Leanne's father was taken in for further questioning and had a sobriety test before staying one night in jail and then returning to the park later that next morning. Ever since Leanne's death, the park progressively suffered some major issues. Gradually, over a period of time, where guests would report seeing shadows, hearing voices of female crying mostly, being touched, hair being pulled, pushed or shoved, getting scratched, lights flickering, objects flying, such things which sometimes were mild occurrences, harmless parlor tricks, but frequently they became more violent and seemed to target specifically staff members more than the guests themselves. In September of 1980, the park closed its doors for good. Primarily the reason was financial issues, most people said. I'm now 22 years old, and the year is 2024. I graduated from film school, and the Land of Oz amusement park had officially reopened not too long ago. I currently work there as a retail shop owner, and I'm also a part-time urban explorer. I run my own YouTube channel where I also do paranormal investigations. I'm often on call to make house visits, and for the past 6 years I busted my butt to get to the bottom of who killed Leanne Porter. My grandfather suffers from dementia, his memory not being as good as it used to be, and he's fighting so hard to piece together all the information he gathered. I can see the pain on his face, and I don't know how much time he has left. It was a cold and cloudy Saturday evening, and it was around 9 o'clock at night. I was the only one there at the park. At least that's what I believed. I wasn't expecting to be targeted by something evil, something that could potentially hurt me. I remember walking down the yellow brick road with my camera recording footage of my surroundings, and it was then I heard leaves rustling and the wind picking up. It's starting to howl eerily. For a good while nothing happened until I heard a girl sobbing. The closer I got to the Munchkin village, the sound got louder and louder. I stopped and asked if anyone was there. I didn't see anyone, and the noise ceased. It was then I decided to go into the security office and set up camp there. Cameras were installed almost everywhere, as shown on the monitors, and I flipped through each cam carefully and cautiously, seeing if I could spot anything different. There was the forest scene where the Tin Man statue is located, and the big barn where the Wicked Witch throws a fireball at the Scarecrow like in the movie. The sets in the park were pretty identical to the layout of all the scenes in the movie. There was a separate path on the far left, a gravelled one adjacent to the yellow brick road. It's a steep hill where Leanne's corpse was found, hung a good 6 feet off the ground. The hill itself had been blocked by a couple bushes, although I still got a clear shot of the top of the hill where there had been a larger tree with thick branches. I left my chair for a minute or two to brew another cup of coffee. When I came back, the one cam with the scene of the Tin Man, the statue, it changed position. He was standing facing the cam this time, and I blinked, leaning in closer. I wasn't sure what to make of it. The Tin Man, his face, looked sad. I rubbed my eyes and shut them, opening them to see that the Tin Man had his left arm extended out, him pointing a finger as if addressing me. The camera glitched, and the screen got all static, before a message in big, bold letters, oozing in blood, appeared. It said, "Dorothy is dead." Then that middle monitor that showed the camera footage went black, and the other monitors, they lagged and froze, and on those screens, there were shadows of little people, presumably outlines of munchkins, a bunch of them standing stock still, and the same message appeared over and over again. Dorothy is dead. And all the power in the park, including the security office, went out completely. I jerked up, startled, my mind spinning like crazy, and I just felt confused. I wasn't sure what to do next.